Okay, Rakshita, so I'll not get into the introduction part, because I have read your basket. So can you give me the history of psychology, uh, how the psychology as a subject evolved?
So, in India or in general?
In general, in general.
In general, so psychology has its roots in philosophy. So, it's a very recent science, but we've grappled with the questions of the mind and human behavior since eternity. And the questions of philosophy, how from Confucius to Buddhism to um, Aristotle, all have tried to kind of theorize why we behave the way we do. Eventually, from the first lab in Leipzig, Germany by Wilhelm Wundt, psychology started taking a very scientific and a very disciplinary shape. And so first, those were the roots of structuralism. So structuralism came about, which studied the mind and its structures as we study the matter and its structures. Similarly, they tried to study the mind and its elements in a very structured and in a very experimental format. Then came functionalism. Functionalism tried to look at human behavior from an evolutionary perspective, how they believe that how behavior evolves for us to adapt to the environment, so does our mental processes and behavior. And the person who pioneered functionalism was William James. Then came the wave of psychoanalysis and Freud, which is how we see psychology as now. Everybody knows about Freud. So in psychoanalysis, it was a very deterministic way of looking at human behavior. They tried to look at the unconscious and the unconscious minds and the conflicts and desires in the unconscious that determine human behavior. Similarly came behaviorism, which was also very deterministic in that sense. Behaviorism by B.F. Skinner and um, uh, um, I'm forgetting the name. They tried to look at behavior from a point of view of cause and effect relationship and from antecedents and external antecedents that determine one's behavior. Then there was humanism. Humanism came as a reaction to psychoanalysis and behaviorism. They felt that behavior is not determined by external forces, but we are responsible for our own behavior and we have free will. So they believed in it was a very optimistic idea of human behavior. They believed that um, people have a potential to self-actualize, people are innately good, and people want good things for other people. And the mental illnesses come from the rift between or the distance between an ideal self that we have for us and the real self. Eventually came the amalgamation of the different forms, and cognitive behavioral therapy came about. Cognitive approach was looked at more of, to the inclined more towards the mental processes determining behavior. And now in the present contemporary day, we have an eclectic form. We apply the forms of the aspects of different therapies in a single therapeutic alliance based on the needs of the patient and based on our own skills. And that is where we lie right now.
Okay. So when we talk about psychology, so whatever you did say that all are the matter of concern or whatever the subject matter that is there. So when you talk about the application of psychology, can you put some application of psychology in all the other fields that you know or that you can cite up?
So I really appreciate psychology because of its nature of its application and because of its nature of collaboration with other fields. From health sector to IT sector, we can apply psychology everywhere. I believe myself that psychology is a science of people. So wherever there are people, there is psychology. And in that sense, we apply psychology and cognitive psychology in the IT sector, we have modeled the computer to resemble our own brain. And that is where psychology plays a role in the IT sector and its development in the IT sector. And similarly, the IT sector plays a role in psychology and the progressive therapy. We do use AI. We've started to, and there's a need to use artificial intelligence in psychology. There are several apps that record symptoms that are able to aid the therapeutic alliance. And in that sense, IT sector is very closely knit. Similarly, healthcare is the obvious choice for when we think about psychology. Healthcare comes mental health, and in policy making and economics as well. Because these
And can you
areas.
elaborate the point of policy making, like how psychology can be useful in policy making?
So, in from my understanding, since I am not a person or student of public policy, but I believe that policy making to a large extent does work towards the control of human behavior, prediction of human behavior, and just an organization of the society which organizes human behavior at its core. So, in that sense, psychology is a science that tries to understand the patterns of human behavior and eventually control them. So, in policy making, to understand human behavior, to understand the needs and the antecedents of human behavior, and also the psychological understanding of how a group works, how a society works as a unit, how contextual understanding of human behavior affects people's needs and affects people's um, um, approach towards their own society. That's something, these areas I feel are very important to for policymakers to understand what group needs how to curate a policy for a specific group or a specific problem, how to target it. So in that sense, psychology would be very beneficial for policymakers.
Nicely explained. So, Malab, we can talk about the Swachh Bharat mission or identification problems, where infrastructural part was well covered in the policy, but the psychological perspective were not. So that's why these policies were not that successful. Okay.
Okay, sure.
And I'll give you a little typical or little more tough question, and we can have 15 seconds to think about it. So we were talking about the using psychology in policy making. So you can just consider any of the social issues, and out of all the social issues that you can think of, pick any of the social issues and try to solve it through psychology, using psychology to bring a policy or bring anything, and in order to eradicate or not completely eradicate, you can just reduce it.
Hmm. So the most relevant problem that I see right now is religious fanaticism and communalism. And I feel the aspects of social psychology would be very beneficial in understanding first and then navigating through the problem and eventually solving it. It's a very deep-rooted problem to solve just like that, but it takes time. But to understand it would be the first step. So to understand group behavior and to understand group think is something that psychology deals with. We try to understand how polarization work, how people try to make extreme decisions when they're part of the group, how their own understanding and their own um, sense of right and wrong takes a back seat when they're part of a group, and to maintain that efficacy of the group, they try to uh, they lose sight of their own morality, and they tend to be violent, tend to be aggressive. Aggression is also something that psychology deeply tries to understand. How does aggression stem? Where does aggression stem from? And what how people are aggressive group mentality is formed. And I feel that if you're able to understand these aspects of psyche, and also how a minority in a country that is specifically majoritarianist, how a minority reacts in such a sense, in such a context, is something that psychology would be able to really delve deep into. Um, Even how a majority behaves towards the sense of power that they have. Power is something that is a very relevant to psychology. How people behave when they have power, how people understand their own roles. So, for example, there is the experiment by Zimbardo, the Stanford prison experiment, wherein people who were assigned the role of a jailer, they they got violent. These were common people who were able to show violence just because of the role that they have. So similarly, how a group which has which feels it is in majority, which has that role of superiority, how they would behave towards a minority group. And how does religion factor in it? Because religion is a very basic part of one's identity and a one's admission to a group.
Okay,
So,
okay. So leave this. So what I'll say, matlab, after this interview, you can send me a policy way to, matlab, steps of policy that one can think of. By whatever understanding do you have? Matlab, like you were rightly telling that we need to understand first, then you should come with the solution. Okay. So I'll be asking about that later. So tell
about
me
the
what you
what
want to.
the
I'll explain it.
okay.
I'll explain later. Just let's go for the next question. So
Okay.
Rakshita, what do you want to achieve? Why do you want to study this course and at PG level, and what will be doing it with it?
So I want to study this course as I've done my bachelor's in psychology, and going for my MA would be the next step in my academic journey. So this course provides a very holistic and a psychosocial understanding of an individual, but it also at the same time focuses on the micro skills in counseling and research. And I feel, since my future goals would be to have my own practice, to I see myself as a clinical psychologist in the future. So these skills that the course provides, of skills in counseling, in different modalities of therapy, in community psychology, in research. These are some skills that would really be make me an adept professional when I reach that stage. Furthermore, I feel that this course, and especially a course at TIS, would make me. I have been living in New Delhi since I was. I've been raised here, and I feel that that sort of dependence that I have, and that sort of comfort that I have living at my own place and studying in Delhi itself, has actually hampered my ability to go out and to think and to be independent. And I feel that this, as a place or as an institution, is very diverse. It provides a plethora of experiences to engage with different sort of people, different people with different ideas. And I feel that academics is, yes, necessary, but that sort of
नहीं
experience.
नहीं वेट इसमें मतलब यू आर गोइंग आउट ऑफ द लाइन. तो एक तो ये वाली बात बोलने की बिल्कुल जरूरत नहीं है दैट यू हैव बीन स्टेइंग इन होम एंड दैट्स व्हाई यू हैव बीन बाउंडेड और ट्रैप्ड. नॉट ट्रैप, मतलब लाइक यू हैव लैक ऑफ एक्सपोजर. ये सब बोलने की जरूरत नहीं है.
Okay.
एंड द क्वेश्चन वाज वेरी सिंपल. क्वेश्चन वाज दैट what's your goal for studying the course, for मतलब what you will be doing ahead. And I
Okay.
already told you, I was not like what are the experiences that you will be getting at the course. So you could have told that the only part that I actually got here with your answer was that you want to be a clinical psychologist,
Mhm.
and for that the things that is happening in the course will be very useful. Okay. So the point, my point is that you can keep some higher goals also, like you were telling me that psychology can be very helpful in policy making or solving issues which are very much prevalent and as a social issues. So matlab, you can talk or you can orient your career in that perspective also, but I'm not willing to do that, but otherwise वो तुमको catch भी हो जाएगा. तो clinical psychology बोल रहे हो तो ठीक है, but make it little big, है ना. Like not only being a practitioner, but we want to promote it, research it, है ना. Because psychologists still need research to make all the theories which has been developed in Western countries Indianize it or to localize it.
Mhm.
Okay. So the last question for you, Rakshita, let's go beyond psychology now. So the poster that you have there, is it Pulp Fiction?
Yes, sir.
So have you seen the movie?
No, sir, I haven't.
So why
But
why did you put that poster there?
so it was a gift by someone, so I had to put it
Okay. So do you watch movies?
up. Occasionally, yes, I do.
So have you got any movie which is very close to the theory of psychology that you have studied? Like any movie that you know that has a very theoretical representation of psychology or very real representation of psychology.
So in Bollywood, there is Dear Zindagi, which basically talks about mental health, the stigma around mental health, and how therapy helps. That movie, I feel, is just a direct um, description or direct. Um, uh, it basically suggests the similar ideas and ideals of psychology, that psychology and mental health too. And apart from that, there is this movie called The Pursuit of Happiness, Will Smith. And that film, I feel, first, of course, it's a beautiful cinematic experience. But apart from that, it touches upon loss, grief, uh, and the idea of how to navigate from loss of a child and how the psychological implications of it, um, how suicidal tendencies, how person copes with that, suicidal ideations, and it very empathetically and sensitively touches these very heavy topics. And I feel it's a very good movie for people, and it's a must that people should watch it.
Okay. So these days the way we are like promoting the mental health issues, like it's okay to be not okay and you should seek help, you should seek professional help in when you feel stress, and stress is real, disorder or distress is real. So do you find any negative aspect of it? Like okay, matlab, we must know that mental health is an clear, matlab, the thing which we need to take, what we should take care of, and there are people among us whose mental health is not right, but we still expect being normal from them. So it should not be like that. But do you have the over promotion that we do, or the promotion that we do has some negative with it?
Yes, sir, it does actually. This is something that I've observed myself because it's a good thing that we now have a dialogue. People are posting about mental health on social media. There is a conversation that is happening, which is amazing. But at the same time, I feel that since it, I don't want it to go into becoming a fad to have mental illness. Um, it's good to talk about it, but it might lead to misdiagnosis. It might lead to people diagnosing themselves just because they believe that this other person has an illness and they've seen it and they diagnose themselves. That sort of is happening around us. We see people um, trying to use mental illness as a label for themselves also. And this, I feel, does have certain implications because people who actually have those mental illnesses, or people who actually have those experiences which are very hard for them to navigate through, um, it is a disrespect to them. And this hyper you know sensitivity to this need to have a mental illness or to uh, be an activist of mental illness in that way. You can be an ally, but you don't have to have a mental illness to jump on the bandwagon of activism. That is something that I've observed recently, and that is, I feel, the dark side of creating a dialogue and of social media also, perhaps.
Okay. Chalo, thank you.
Thank you so much.